Welcome to A Walk in the Park, a retreat from the ordinary. My name is Lisa Clayton, Parks Director for the City of Franklin. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our show. Each show will provide you information regarding park projects, special events, and interesting topics about Franklin Parks. We have a special show for you today. The park at Harlansdale Farm is one of the most popular parks in Franklin. But what do you know about the Hayes home that sits overlooking the entire area? Parks Facilities Superintendent Kevin Lindsay takes a tour inside the home with one of the family members and talks with him on site. Plus, canoeing and kayaking on the Harpeth River is getting a whole lot easier. We will talk with Dory Bowles from the Harpeth River Watershed Association to learn more about what this group is doing to get you on the water faster and safer. But first, I would like to personally thank all the folks who came out and made our cross-country fun run, dog dash, and family day a success. We had such a great time spending the day with you at Harlansdale. Well, not too far away from where all the action was taking place sits a little white house. It's one of Franklin's most notable historic homes. I've often wondered what life was like behind those old doors. Our facilities superintendent, Kevin Lindsay, finds out when he meets with Jim Hayes, a man born and raised in this farmhouse, and gives us an exclusive tour inside.
Well, today we're out at the Harlansdale Farm, which is basically about a half a mile, I would say, Mr. Jim, from the city of Franklin Square. This is a little bit under a 200-acre farm, right here off of Franklin Road. 239 Franklin Road is the address. On this farm, I'd like to do a little bit of walking history with this farm if we can. It's almost like a history lesson 101, if you will, and you're the teacher. But today my guest is Mr. Jim Hayes. Mr. Jim, you grew up right here on the farm.
I did.
You've seen a lot of changes take place to this farm. You've seen a lot of changes, I hope, since the Parks Department and the City of Franklin has taken it over. I've
probably seen more since the Parks Department took over than I did in the entire many years I lived here. I was born here. Actually, I was born in this very house, in one of the rooms right off this very porch where we're sitting. I was born about 20 feet from where we're sitting. And so I lived the first 23 years of my life here before I moved away to live elsewhere in Williamson County. But yes, I grew up here. And I grew up in a family that was totally dedicated to this kind of lifestyle. Although we were less than a mile from the town square, and I always like to describe it as an island in the middle of the city, because it's always been that way, but it never felt that way. And history-wise, this house that you see and you'll see more of was built and finished in 1899. It was built for a member of the Lilly family. Now, to refresh everybody's history lesson a bit further, there was a company here called Lilly Mills. Lilly Mills were manufacturers of cornmeal and flour and retail sellers in grocery stores. So it was a big operation, and obviously this house was built for one of the members of the Lilly family, and when it was built, it was considered ultra-modern. For example, I have some references in the Review Appeal to the family moving into their new house, and it described an ultra-modern Delco lighting system, an ultra-modern rain collection system and freshwater containment with 2 modern cisterns and things of that nature, which in 1899 was big time.
Pretty high tech back then, wasn't it?
Pretty high tech. And so it's been here all these years. It has survived, and my family lived here my mother and father lived here for over 40 years. And they were probably the longest dwellers in this house. And of course, all of my childhood memories were right here.
All right, Mr. Hayes, let's go inside this beautiful old house and take a look.
Well, it is old, all right, and it's empty.
We can.
Brings back a lot of memories, Kevin.
Well, good. I hope they're good memories.
They are. All of them are good memories.
Let's go inside. I think you spoke a little bit on this particular room right here. This is your birthplace.
Yeah, I was born in this room, and This served as my bedroom when I was growing up here all through my school years and high school. And actually I commuted back and forth to college in Nashville, so I lived at home while I was, and lived primarily in this room. Family primarily lived in other parts of the house. I guess they didn't want to be close to me and all my radio experiments.
Well, this house has got some plaster walls. It's got
Yeah.
The tall ceilings, which you kind of brought out.
It,
talking about the coolness and the warm in the wintertime not being so such.
Right.
So these high ceilings really let the air flow through, and I guess it lets all the warm air float up. The cool air stayed down, so it made it pretty comfortable during the summertime days.
It was very comfortable in the summertime. And no one in my growing-up years had central air. That was an unknown. Later in my years here, they did put in a couple of window units, but 2 small window units to keep this house very comfortable because of the height of the ceiling. And this, you can look in one of these rooms. You can see how this plaster construction.
Yeah, let's move this over. This is a fabulous pocket door right here, and it still works.
Oh yeah, still
That's
works.
amazing. As old as this house is,
Squirrel nest and all.
still works.
But these little wooden pieces that you see embedded in the corroded plaster, that was called lattice work. And that's primarily just a name that they use to have something substantial to hold the plaster. So they apparently would nail those to the framework of the house, and then these workmen would mix plaster on great trowels and splatter it on the walls and form the curves, and all by hand. And all these curved surfaces are made by hand. How they did that, I'll never know. But I can recall a couple of workmen in here trying to repair it. It's always been a problem to keep it. It's a moisture it does not like. And this house, of course, has been subject to leakage over the years. It's had a lot of problems.
Well, this past year, we just finished up actually putting a nice roof on this house. We've got it dried in pretty much on all sides.
Yeah,
now we'll start with the rest of the phase, which is coming in, putting some mechanical, plumbing, and electrical to it.
Right.
And hopefully then, once that happens, we can really start to redo the inside of this house.
Well, one of the things that points to the fact that this was a high-end house when it was built in 1899 were the decorative fireplaces. All these fireplaces in the hearth area were tiled, which is not unusual particularly, but you found that in high-end houses. And also, rather than have masonry fireplaces, all of them had steel grates installed. Now the advantage, I think, was that the grate burned the coal more evenly or something. But that was state of the art in 1899. But of the original part of the house that was built in 1899, every one of the fireplaces has these tile finished mantles and hearths, and all that's original. And I understand that the millwork was all done custom order in Nashville by an old company that's long since out of business.
It certainly makes a statement, especially back then in 1899, to have tile.
Well, if you stop and think about it, it was built
Fireplace.
by one of the owners of Lilly Mill, and that was probably one of the most successful industries in Franklin. So you would think wealth follows success in business. So they had obviously the money to do it with. This you wouldn't see in ordinary homes built around that era.
Now, is this the ballroom? What would you
This
call
was a
this?
living
The dining
room.
room, living room,
Or some folks called it parlor.
the parlor?
But in my generation, we used it as a living room. And actually, it had very little use because nobody would come in here unless you had guests coming on Sunday or something, holidays or things of that nature. Farm families tended to live in very small amount of space because of the difficulty in heating it. And our family lived in, we lived in 2 or 3 rooms primarily. The rest of the house was kept for special occasions.
So what time during the year century did your family move out?
Well, my dad moved out in 1980, when he died. My mother was here a couple of years thereafter and moved up into Franklin. But they occupied the house from 1936 until, let's say, 1982. quite a long period of years, over 40 years. And bottom line is, I guess the Hayes family, in the entire lifetime of the house, we occupied it over half of its existence.
So now we're coming into the hallway with the nice curved walls, as you just mentioned. You don't see that very often. You've got the windows that break down up top to let some of the air flow through.
Now that door that you're looking at there, which was referred to as the side door, and it also opened or opens, and in the day it had a full-length window screen, copper screen door, to allow the westerly breezes to come in. It was a cooling. This design was made to keep you cool in the summertime.
I know most people wouldn't even kind of recognize this, but this right here would be a stop system.
Right,
that would ride this up
for the transit.
To hold the transit out. That way the wind wouldn't continue to blow it open and possibly break it.
Well, they were also opened as a ventilation feature. They were opened and left open in the summertime. They were screened as well on the outside.
I would open this up, but as you see, we got it kind of nailed shut there.
Yeah.
Or actually, you guys had it nailed shut. When we got it, we just kind of left it like that. But that's how you would operate that. You would push that button, raise it, lower it to open that at an angle to let the wind flow through.
You would have a hard time not being comfortable in here, even on the hottest summer day, without air conditioning. And the front part of the house was that design primarily so if you had guests, they could be comfortable. The rest of the house, we just had to fend for ourselves, more or less. But there are transoms in every opening, every door opening, just for movement of air.
So now we're working our way on back. The room right beside, I guess, your room. Was this just another bedroom?
It was a bedroom. I was an older sister, and we each had a bedroom. My parents had the bedroom here on my left, and this house has lots of doors. If you figured that out, and a lot of them open to the front porches, front and side porches, because in the summer we spent a lot of our time on those porches. And that's what we'd do in the evenings. After the evening meal, we would normally have chairs on those porches, and we would go. This was before television, when nobody had anything to rivet their attention to. We did listen to radio, but mainly that was left in the house. We actually had conversations, believe it or not. And so we would had a lot of neighbors would come by, and so we'd visit with the neighbors. And you would stay there until the weather cooled down. And you were talking a few minutes ago, we're on a cloudy day here today, and you're actually chilly. Yesterday it was in the mid-80s. Today it's chilly here. It was pretty easy to get chilly with that wind blowing on you. Yeah. So you'd stay and visit with your neighbors till they got chilly and headed home to go to bed. So that was your entertainment when you lived in the country.
Well, let's go into this room here to our right. And would this be more of a main room? It's right beside the parlor.
Well, this is my mother and father's bedroom, and they had this huge walk-in closet area here. It's a room all its own, and that was their area. It led into the one and only bath.
One and only bathroom.
So the bath, of course, was added to the house in later years, but. There's a lot of storage in there. And I think all that is cedar lined.
Back behind there.
And actually, people always ask me when they look at that upper storage where he's panning now, what on earth did you use that for? Well, got to keep in mind that my dad exhibited horses, and he had a lot of suits. Exhibitor's clothing that you would wear, and it was seasonal. So he had a tremendous amount of clothing that he had to change. If he was on a sorrel horse, he wore a suitable color to match or contrast with his horse. Same is true with his hats. So that area up there was for his storage of his hats that he primarily used when in the exhibition ring.
Man with many hats.
Man with many hats, and. So, and you're not supposed to be judged. the horse is supposed to be judged, but the rider isn't. But common knowledge is you want to look your best when you're showing a horse. So this was their bedroom.
Nice shutters on the inside.
Guess that was their answer to Venetian blinds.
Venetian blinds, shutters. Well, it sure works. They're also workable. Still.
It's always amazed me that stuff was, handmade. Somebody had to make all those little shutters.
And again, the ceilings are still, they're the same height all the way through the house.
Mm-hmm.
To work that warm air up and have the cool air down at the bottom for good flow. And then take a look at the trim mold at the bottom. That didn't come out of a molder, I'm sure. I'm sure someone handmade that. Even got the curve there in the middle of the curved wall. I don't know how hard it is to see on camera, but that is indeed a half circle. It's a good curve. It's not straight at all. And just about every wall in here has got curves.
How many layers of wallpaper can you see?
I'm not sure. Several. You probably got your name up under a few of those, you think?
If I did, I probably got punished for it.
Now you said this house had one restroom.
One.
So when was that put onto the house? I'm sure
I
it
don't
wasn't.
know.
I'm sure it wasn't here when your dad purchased the house.
Well, it was. I sort of believe it was in the 30s. I can't answer that because the indoor plumbing was here when I came here.
So it might have been one of the
1940.
early houses that had plumbing back then.
And I don't know whether it was a converted dressing room. It was turned into a bath, indoor bath. I don't think it was a modification of this back porch that we're about to walk out onto. But
Yeah, the porch definitely looks like it's an add-on.
But
Still back in time, but
it's
not
at a
as old
different
as
level.
it appears. It is a different level. It's also got a pitch on it. Looks like it's running about 3 inches down.
Well, now when I was
slope.
raised here, this porch was open. It wasn't boxed in.
And then you could also see you still got the siding here.
Yeah.
So something has been added up on the corner of this this back porch here.
Country houses of this era, they all had mud rooms, obviously for a good reason, because farmers don't stay clean, and most of the farmers shed their outer layer of clothing in the mud room before they came into the house, or they caught a little, if they didn't. But
We have the upstairs. We won't walk upstairs.
it's not finished.
It's not finished.
I don't know whether Mr. Lilly ran out of money before he finished it, or he just didn't want it finished. Basically, this room here is a room where we spent about 90% of our family time in this room and the adjoining kitchen and dinette area. And
again, the tile still flows in this room with
Yeah.
the fireplace
right,
and the metal.
that's
grate.
beautiful tile there.
Fireplace.
All the old chandeliers are original equipment. And as far as I know, these white ones are complete, which in itself is unusual. Most of the time they're broken.
Now, what about the kitchen? We're getting ready to walk into. Before we leave this room, what was this room used as?
It was a family room.
Just a family room?
We'd call it a den in today's terminology. And this is had a couple of sofas, formed an L, and a couple of easy chairs, television in the corner. You'll notice Dad had his office telephone wired in here as well as our residential telephone, so he could take business calls while he was at home. And the kitchen's altogether modern.
Ceiling kind of drops down right here a little bit, but then it tries to go back out to try to maintain the look of the house. So,
And I do remember the kitchen being remodeled twice in my memory. So it's been modern. It's been updated
Yeah.
several times.
Some old, these are wooden cabinets. And if you notice, we've got a window in here. So that tells you right there, right off the bat, that has been added on.
Yep.
Was probably a little nice right there for the wife to yell at the husband to come on in, let's eat, from the mud room.
Well, it also, if you look on the outside of the house, you'll see evidence well, actually, there it is, a flue that one time there was a wood burning cook stove in here.
Yeah, right there's the circle.
Mm-hmm.
See where it plastered over?
And this, another mud room on this side of the house.
It's like another addition.
And I don't know, you've been under it. You might be able to tell more from the foundation than you can from this side, this top side.
Well, the door actually ends the coal oil, which basically would sit, if I ain't mistaken, about in this area right here, right up under us. It could be that way just a little bit, but the two tanks, I think, sit right in this area right here.
Fuel tanks.
Fuel tanks are still there.
Well, if you ever want to get those out, that'd be a job, wouldn't it?
It would be. It would be. I think they're fine where they're at for right now.
Well, you never know.
Let's talk about the lighting a little bit. As we see, we've got these walls, of course, are what, 14
feet.
14 feet. So it looks like somebody's coming here and put a light switch up here. I bet you couldn't get from it from the ceiling and you couldn't get from it from the floor because the way they put the wall together, you probably have a straight piece of wood across through there. So somebody had to wire it from underneath during the day. From underneath you come here, and from above you would come down as far as you could poke.
It's a good thing we were all tall people.
Kind of unique. So now we've come to the stairway. We're back out in the main hall, and this is how we go down into the cellar. So we'll open up this door, and we still have electrical in the building. It's old knob and tube. And Mr. Hayes, do you know more about the electrical than I do?
Actually, I probably don't. But the only thing I can tell you is that the vast majority of the wiring in the attic and in the walls is still the old porcelain knob type wiring where the individual conductors are spaced physically. And ironically, that wiring is still approved for use today and is considered safer than modern wiring. It was, again, state of the art in the early 1900s.
And probably still used. I know a lot of houses, I kind of watch history shows and remodel shows, and a lot of the houses up north still have that and still run on that currently.
Right. But this house is, the integrity of it is fairly intact. Much more so than you find in a lot of old buildings. And I think that's probably because it's had one inhabitant all those years. Because changing people usually means making changes in the house.
So we've got the parlor room, then you've had the master.
Right.
So that's
two
rooms, 2 bedrooms here, which is a 4-bedroom, if you count this back here. But you said you really had two family rooms. So really you had a 3-bedroom house.
This main parlor room, you call it, or the living room, as I call it, this was the room where my mother kept all her finer things, and this was where you never went except on Christmas, Thanksgiving, or when you had guests. Those doors would have been closed, and the children would have been forbidden.
All the fine china sitting on the table.
Everything that she wanted to show off was in here. And that was her pride and joy. And, you know, she meticulously kept this room spotless, although nobody ever came in it.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And she was a great homemaker and housekeeper.
From the Parks Department, I'll send it back to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Kevin, for bringing us that great story. When we come back, a launch party like no other. Dory Bowles will help explain.
Good morning, Franklin. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Local news is coming up next. We'll check the weather and the traffic. You have a great day out there.
Good evening, Franklin, Tennessee.
Welcome back. Kayaking and canoeing along the Harpeth River might be the relaxing escape you need from your busy schedule. Well, our friends at the Harpeth River Watershed Association have exciting news to help you float your cares away. Dory Bowles joins us now. Dory, thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, listen, many people may not realize the association that you're involved in and what you do. Kind of share with our audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a conservation biologist, and I have a master's degree. And I used to work for many years on international wildlife conservation work. I helped to pass some legislation that had to do with the ivory trade and a lot of endangered species and actually protecting the bluefin tuna. So I moved to Tennessee in 1999 and ran across some folks, people in the city know Al Cox and some others who had formed this organization. And so I said, well, let's try and raise some money. And we got one of our first state grants to do stream restoration work. And so that sort of started the organization.
Exactly, and it's been going strong for over 10 years. You've been the executive director for how long?
Since 2001, when we finally had some money in the bank.
Exactly, exactly. Well, we have an exciting project coming up. And you all have been such an intricate part, but the former dam site on Lewisburg, there was a lot in the paper over the last couple of years, but prior to us kind of getting to the exciting part that's coming up, share with us, the dam was removed and the state and the city were heavily involved. What was that project? What all did it entail?
Actually, it's a big project. And it was neat because our organization was able to bring in some federal dollars, which are used to actually remove structures like low-head dams to improve fish, this is a hard one, fish passage.
Okay.
Anyway, to reconnect parts of rivers that get blocked. That's one of the big issues going on around the country. This is probably the 600th dam that's been removed around the country in the last 10 years. It's a big trend. But this is a teeny one. This wasn't really a dam, and so we like to say low-head dam because people think it holds back water and therefore we might flood downtown Franklin. No, this was just a little structure. If you ever played in a creek, you would pool it up the little structure with rocks so you could have a little puddle to play in. And that's what the city of Franklin built back in the, this structure went in, I think, in '61 so that they can withdraw water for the drinking water plant. So the really neat thing about this project was that we basically designed sort of a new modern way so you can maintain natural river behavior, natural river processes, and still be able to use the river for drinking water. So if people go out there today, they'll see this rock structure that's been built in the river that's real low, and it creates two little mini waterfalls that are 6 inches high. So the fish can swim up and down it year-round. You can paddle over it. It's also a good swimming hole because everybody's playing in it, I can see. And it's a great place to catch a nice 2-pound smallmouth bass.
Exactly, exactly.
So the whole point of the project was a combination of things. It was a restoration project because the riverbanks, they were very steep and eroding. So we addressed that by, you'll notice that the banks have been cut back a little bit, so they're not quite as tall. Then the Loja Dam came out, and that was the part that the state did. That was really great. That was a great thing they contributed to the project along with the federal money. There are 14 different entities involved. Wow. Because TDOT was involved, the State Wildlife Resources Agency, the Federal Wildlife Fish and Wildlife Service, and the engineering firm Beaver Creek Hydrology, and they do this work all around the southeast. And the City of Franklin, ultimately, I think the City of Franklin and the grant was about an equal amount of money. So the City of Franklin was a great beneficiary. This is a very expensive project that they got for a quarter of the price. No, a third of the price, sorry.
Exactly, and I know that on site, you've got pervious concrete, trees and vegetation went in, but this site was used a lot by the general public.
Yes.
Just
fishing. Exactly.
And so now we've kind of enhanced that.
Right, and we actually, in coordinating, we'll get to this in a second, but in putting in the timber stairs right off of the parking lot so people can get in and out of the river easily as far as taking their kayaks out and their canoes out. We also coordinated with the Wildlife Agency so that this would be the easiest place for them to put in the trout when they do the trout stocking in the wintertime.
Absolutely, and that's kind of one of the highlights within our community when that takes place. I know that we receive a lot of phone calls as well as working with
we wanted to make sure we had overflow parking because there can be a lot of trucks out there.
Exactly. Well, that kind of leads us into one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is we have such a great partnership as far as the City of Franklin and the Parks Department especially. We have a new project going in on site. Kind of share with us maybe kind of how this came about, and I think it was part of the original project.
Well, it wasn't in the original project in terms of the overall what we spent the money on, which is why we got LP Products contributed $5,000 to match the Parks Department so that we could actually put the stairs in, which was great for them. The original plan was to wait and see how everybody used the site. And so that was definitely Kevin Lindsay and you all saying, people are going to go this way probably to go fishing and go over here to picnic. Let's see how they use it, and then we'll see whether we need some timber stairs to make it easier to get in and out as far as dragging up your kayaks and so forth. So it didn't take but maybe a month?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was pretty obvious. So the timber stairs have been designed, and this is a design that's been used around the state. Our organization is part of a statewide effort with the State Scenic Rivers Program, a paddling organization that a number of city staff are members of, the Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association. Then our organization and others, we've created a concept called the Blue Way. So it's basically public accesses along rivers, especially for paddlers. Not boat launches, but paddling access. Because there's a lot of water, as you know, it's just not very easy to get to unless you have an arrangement with a private property owner. So the most extensive one is on the Harpeth, and we started first downriver at the Harpeth River State Park. So there have been funds, very same funds that the Parks Department received for Harlansdale that they received down there. So we designed these timber stairs, and they made it through the May 2010 flood. So
that says a lot.
Yeah, they work, and they're low profile. It's just so that you don't chew up the riverbank as you climb in and out of the river. Exactly,
and we've got a couple of private companies that are here in Franklin, and we kind of foresee that this probably will bring even more from a private side. So this will be the first that in the parks system that we have. I know that within the city we have one at the Williamson County Recreation Center. So most definitely you'll be able to leave this site and actually travel to the Franklin Center in the future.
That takes about 3 hours in the summer. And I know some people say, well, why would you want to go out and play in the Harpeth in downtown Franklin in the summer? But actually, it's really lovely. And it may not be going quickly, but that's a great opportunity for, just taking your kids out, and you can get out and you can play in the pools and swim. It's not meant to be a fast trip.
Exactly.
And so at the moment, that's a very popular trip. even before the Lowhead Dam project happened. So you put in there, and it takes about 3 hours during the summertime to get out at the rec center. And the same team of folks built the rec center access with REI funds. So we've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years. And we now have, as you know, we're going to put one in at Harlansdale as part of the RTP grant with Harlansdale next summer.
Exactly. So then we'll have two at least within the city of Franklin in a short distance. So this coming weekend at the site, we actually start, in fact, they'll start the construction. I know that they're assembling as we speak all the materials and that type of thing.
People start seeing the timber and the gravel.
Exactly. So maybe share with our citizens who they might be coming by or they've been using this area, kind of what they will see over the next couple of weekends, or at least within the month of October.
Sure. Friday, the Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association, there are two folks who are excellent at designing these things, so they're sort of the head of it, and they will start that work with some of your city staff, with Kevin Lindsay. Then Saturday will begin the real volunteer build. So they're all built with volunteer labor. People who like lifting rocks and lifting large timbers and pounding them into the ground with rebar. So the big construction will start Saturday with Bell Construction. There's 30 staff coming out on Saturday to help all day long. Sunday will be the next day. I know a lot of the Franklin Fire Department staff are helping out. And there's a lot of paddlers in the city of Franklin.
Exactly.
So, and then we have the next 2 weekends as well. We always plan for a big project like this, we plan 2 weekends. Hopefully it'll be done by next Saturday. We have some of the timber that won't be delivered until Tuesday, so we know we'll be working next Saturday, October 26th. So if anyone's interested, they can contact us. HarpethRiver.org is the simplest place. You can email us or call us at 790-9767. It never hurts to have volunteers. Sometimes somebody can't come at the last minute. So.
Absolutely, and I know that our community is so great with volunteers, and so if you do have time to get out, we welcome you to do that. Again, we're going to have staff. Franklin, most people don't realize that we have a swift water rescue team.
Exactly.
And when the flood in May of 2010 came, it was amazing what those men and women did within our public safety. And so this really, from a public safety standpoint, allows our crews to be able to access the river. They'll be marked. Dispatch, our communications office, will be able to track those that are on it. So we think this is going to be a great addition.
And then we'll be coordinating with the county as well. So the same system. That's why we were talking to the folks in Cheatham County, because they put the system in a couple years ago. They tend to have people who get lost, and it's a very windy river. So a lot of people don't know where they are, and it gets to be night, and then
exactly.
I don't know where I am. And they just went all the way by all the accesses. So the folks in Cheatham County sort of said, okay, we need a system, and that includes coordinating with Life Flight when there's an injury. We actually worked, as you know, with the Swift Water Rescue team to sort of design and discuss the design of the stairs, as well as out at Harlansdale. And what I understand is that there are also 3 private accesses going in sometime in the near future. So the stretch in the city of Franklin, starting up at eventually when the South Crothers Bridge goes across the Harpeth, there'll be a lot of accesses where there haven't been any. And then that'll connect to the rec center. So our last project is to put 3 in between the rec center and Highway 100, so like the northern Williamson County section.
Which would be a great project for our community. And again, it's something free that a family can do. And if you haven't, I've been down it several times. In fact, we've gone down it many years ago together. It's a wonderful and such a gem within our city.
It's so cool. It is. It's just wonderful. You're in the middle of downtown Franklin, and by having multiple accesses that are closer together in downtown Franklin, you can just go for an hour.
Exactly. Well, you kind of mentioned we did receive a Recreation Trails grant at Harlansdale, and part of that grant is a canoe launch, but it also is the equestrian trails that will be going in 2014. But from a preliminary standpoint, kind of that'll be a little different compared to some of the other canoe launches you've seen. From a height standpoint, or
except that we've already been out there a couple of times, and we'll weave it through the trees that are already there. And that's all the coordinating we've already been doing out on the site, is coordinating it with the horse trail and figuring out how to get people to drive down there and back so they have a turnaround. But it's actually, there's some steeper locations down in on the Harpeth and Cheatham County. So this one's sort of right in between. And it's not too challenging, actually. It just takes a lot of manual labor to build it.
Exactly, exactly. So from your organization standpoint, what is some of the other things that's on your radar that you see from the Blue Ways of the Harpeth River? What are some of the things to bring that a citizen may not know?
Right. Well, some of the things we're working on now, and I was thinking about that, is we're actually doing a lot of work in Eagleville, which is where the river starts. And a lot of people don't realize that, and that's south. The river runs northwest.
Gotcha.
So anyway, water flows downhill. That doesn't necessarily mean it flows south, okay? And Tennessee River, west of here, will flow north. So we're working in Eagleville, and we're working with the Eagleville schools, and they're helping us gather water quality data. We are doing a number of restoration projects with farmers, and that's a continuation of work we've been doing in Eagleville, and there will be some volunteer projects coming up in the fall. And then we have received a new grant for our fish habitat restoration initiative, so we'll be working on identifying new restoration projects or rain garden projects. We just finished a big one in Brentwood at the Y up there. So we're always looking for opportunities for projects that are good demonstration projects of what you can do in your farm or your land or your development. So we'll be having a big tree planting season again come wintertime.
Dory, thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to partnering with you in the future and what we have to come. And to you, we love providing our citizens the information about the best parks in Franklin. Visit us at our website anytime for upcoming events at www.franklintn.gov. I'm your host, Lisa Clayton, and remember, take a walk in the park. See you next time.